unusual. I guess that's par for the course, though. So, to begin this video, we will be establishing the basis of this universe from the beginning. And I think that should start with knowing how it's going to be shaped, how everything is in relation to each other. Because this is fantasy world. I started it off, what can I purposely change from our world to make it opposite in this world and it be still interesting and fun. So it's going to be pretty blatantly clear where trends will go from that understanding. And it ties into like all of this as well. Move, you can't get there. Yeah, you can't get there. I did that on purpose. Yeah. So this world is a flat disk. It's top down like this. There's a center island, mountain. There's an outer chain, continent, and then jagged mountains all around. And it looks kind of like this from the side. And underneath we have the underside of this world, which plays into the Dungeons and Dragons reflection of good, bad, law, chaos. There's always reflections of some sort, but this one is different in that this underworld is the solidifying fact that there are no outer planes really in this universe, because I like the idea that if you're good enough, you can just walk there. And this exemplifies that. Coincidentally, that looks like a mathematical thing, but we're not going to go there. So, this is the inner world. Everything between these mountains and above this line. This is the inner world. That's where the normal world is. That's where everything, that's the world that everything happens in normally. There's nothing magical other than the fact that magic in this world is essentially just non-understood things, non-understood phenomenon, and or it's understood to be translated by some other force to receive some other outcome. That's magic in this world. So, inner world, regular world. From the top of this mountain, a little bit above, actually about 7,500 miles above this is the top of the inner world. The bottom of it is I haven't quite figured that part out yet, but this is the Underdark. Or whatever you want to call it. Underworld is probably what it is, really. Because that's where all the classical Underdark denizens will be from D&D 5e or whatever tradition you want to come from. And then on the surface of the bottom part of the disc is the Shadowfell. Man, I hate this thing. Not that great. And I like FEL, one word, Shadowfell. Why not? And then down here is the dark sun. It is literally just a black sun, because that's what it is. You know, I could just move this up to like over here, and it looked much better at me looking down at it. But we can figure that out. Hold on. Put this on top. Yeah. Because this side, that side is pointless for now. So this is what we're talking about. Shadowfell, and then if we come over just a little bit, everything from this side, actually it's more precisely everything from the very exact center of the mountain range this way is the Feywild, Fawilde, because we want to be legally distinct, I guess. I don't know. It seems like a fun spelling. I don't know the origins of that spelling of wild yet, but we'll figure it out. It might be tying in. Feywild, and it goes out to infinity outward. And the Feywild does not have an end in this universe. Can't have an end. It's now mathematically impossible for it to have an end. This is the very center of the universe, if we want to look at it that way. And outside is the infinite Feywild, which used to be all one solid plane. It used to be completely yeah, it used to be completely one whole solid thing. Yeah, that's good. One whole solid continuous surface flat, and then the water was mixed into the earth when it was, except for like clouds and whatnot. And then this significant event happened. Gorl's Lake created the mountain and the moon, which is why I cleared off this top part to begin with. The moon is up here. If we're going to use the current understanding of the moon, and it is a shattered mess on one side. Between the top of this moon to the center of this world is 7,500 miles. And miles in this specific instance is 1,000 paces, all which in average terms, if you want to average it out and as close as you want, is 5.28 feet per pace. Average. I want these exact numbers. I want these to be known, and I want them to be suspiciously round, because for some reason, round numbers in history and other traditions, when they are pointed out and they start repeating, a mystical aspect is given to them, because human nature is trying to tell a story. So let's make that part real. It's fantasy. That's Dungeons and Dragons. Those kinds of things are real, so we're making it real. This world is perfectly flat and perfectly spherical in the inner world. The inner world is a sphere that is R equals 7,500, and you can figure out everything else from there. And from that, we figured out how much the moon is, and blah blah this, blah blah that. But suspiciously exact things like this is what makes it so wizards can discover this world and make use of these things. That's what this visual representation is going to help establish, is a coherency that is usually left to being mystic and the mystery of magic, which I still want to keep. I'm keeping that in this setting, but I like the idea of being a wizard. I guess that's any kind of dungeon master philosophy, is you're some sort of wizard of this world trying to discover it along with the other wizards, and you're competing with them. That's why there's always a self-insert. I have mine in here. It's Braxton Maywright. It will pop up to him eventually. But because I made that choice, we're able to make these assumptions from reality and correlate them to something fun and fantasy. Having perfect distances helps me convey that. So the moon being 7,500 miles away exactly, to the very top of the moon, at its farthest point away from the center of this world, is exactly 7,500 miles. The size of the moon from that, where is it? There it is. It's also 100% dead center above the other thing, and you can see that via the shadow depending on where you are in the world. It is proportionate to how much the sun shadows based on where it is, and it never changes, and all that jazz. Well, it didn't change when the moon was whole. Now it's kind of half exploding, kind of spinning. I don't know if I'm going to take that into account for calendars, but we'll see. So from those exact positions, we get calculations of how big the moon is. It's about 3 times the size of our moon. The sun is significantly smaller and way closer. It is only 900,000 miles away. It's the same apparent size of our sun, but much closer, much smaller, and doesn't change position. All this I found based on the height of the mountain here, which is 38 miles tall. That's conceivably the most theoretically high mountain we could have in our understanding, from my vague chiseling into the geological theory of it all. So it's 38 miles from the very center to the very top. 2 miles of it I decided was underwater because I needed something to be decided from an arbitrary standpoint. And based on how the moon was formed from Goral's Leap over here, to the moon being taken to the top of the universe over here, we could calculate this space here, which this is approximately 126 miles in radius. Yeah, 126 miles in radius. Total volume, miles cubed, is 8.4 million. Call it 8.5, 8.48 million miles cubed. Circumference is 794 miles. We were able to calculate these things in real life. I wanted somebody who, if they wanted to be a wizard and they really wanted to like be a wizard in this world, I could give them those tools, saying you can make these calculations, you can do this math. This is just the reality. So in real life, if you can do that and find those calculations in real life based on those things, you can do the same thing in this world, and we can make the magic happen. We can make computers talk, or we can make RPGs talk. I don't know of any other physical parts to this universe yet. I believe this is all the physical things. It's not much. It's not hard to see. You can see pretty much all the important parts that people play around in. Though I did recently discover there are currently intangible but transportable, can be transported to via at least plane shift. We figured that one out. To the other planes. So because this world has perfect dimensions, those are impassable boundaries let's say. I get that idea from irrational numbers. Pi, the circumference, pi is involved with the circumference. Euler's numbers is involved with stuff. It's just phi is one. It's stuff like that. These are infinitely calculable numbers that have a whole, but you can't get to it the hard way. You have to get through it to an abstract kind of way. Like you can calculate to 1 trillion numbers back in pi, but it still won't get you close to the end because it's infinite. Though a circle in itself completes it. So in this world, if the wizard can calculate to it, they can figure out the math and method to get beyond it. And in this case, I just looked at what 5e has for the material components, which is just the fuel, the materials you need to fuel the spell, to make the spell work. So however you need to plane shift, you grab a tuning fork and whatever other necessary things go with it. But the tuning fork is something that they gave it as an example. And to me, based on the other magics of this universe, if you were a wizard, you would pull from other studies and theories to apply the engineering to make the tuning fork work. Or the tuning fork is necessary for the rest of the work. And in this case of this world, it is based on different things. To get to the Feywild, you have to traverse the boundary perfect circle of this world. So you got to involve pi and the tuning fork somehow in your whatever calculations, your theory, which is the spell. You do all those things. You apply it to the tuning fork. You run the mana through it, which is the fuel or the electricity, or whatever you want to call it. The force of the thing, of the universe, to go through it. And based upon it doing those interactions, it somehow transports you beyond that boundary. That's the mystical part. That's the magic I'm keeping. I'm not going to explain that crap. I don't care about that crap. That specificity is only for the people in that world, which I can't go to because it's fake. But we can make approximations and make it fun. So somehow the Feywild involves pi in the tuning fork. You put pi in the mathematical equation, and it finds that boundary, and then the wizard builds the machinery or whatever to get through that boundary. That's the spell plane shift. So, okay, Feywild is pi. What are all the other ones? Well, I don't know, because I'm not familiar with the associations of these things, or at least I wasn't familiar with these associations of how can I make math or something scientifically or traditionally scientific involved with the different elements. This universe is based on the 4 classic elements. Well, coincidentally 5, but we're 4 personified. I guess 5 could be anti-personified in this case, just by virtue of D&D being, or tabletop fantasy RPGs having that balance of there being an opposite. So that's something we need to take note of. I haven't thought about that until just now. And that's either, but we'll get there. So, Earth, Kerros, Mother Earth, is just Earth in this. It's the world. The physical, like, thing you stand on, the grass, the dirt, the of the world things. It's there. But fantasy kind of demands there to be a plane of Earth, because of the spiritual aspect, I suppose. So, is there a spiritual Earth? And in this case, yes, it's the goddess Kerros. She is spiritually Earth. So, yes, there is a spirit world in this universe. So, there could easily be a spiritual plane of Earth that you can't walk to, but if you can cross into over the spiritual boundary, you can get there. I don't know how detailed I have gotten when deciding if you physically go there or if you can just get your spirit to appear there and you manifest yourself in your spirit there. I don't know. I guess it'll depend on what's fun at the time. I can easily be just thrown in for the game. Yeah, we can do that. And then when I'm building the world, I can say no later because it's my world that I'm building in my own time. And if I want to change this one thing, I can already think of the implications of changing. And as of now, there are none, so we're not going to get there. So we've established that there is a spiritual version of the plane of Earth. How can we associate that with the mathematics? Well, coincidentally, we have a very easy link there, because ancient philosophers or scientists did have these associations already. Because they were philosophers, not just scientists. Today's science is only science. There's no philosophy involved with it. Philosophy itself is a study, which I have no opinion on at this moment, other than the spirituality, the philosophical nature of the world is what drives me. I like to think in these ways. It tickles my fancy, so I'm going to go with it. And the hard work is already done. I just looked up if there were any spiritual attachments to something mathematical or scientific, and indeed, the bestest way we could correlate these things is with the shape of the dice in the world. I had these notes written down somewhere. This is the problem with ADHD. I'll just write things down. So See, they might even be in here. It might even be in here already. We'll look. Magic. Plane shift. Oh, look. I did already have all the hard work done already. So we'll go back. And then just open this up already. See, I forgot I had this done already entirely. Plane shift. It's pi. And then... It should be 3. I did this one. No, it's got 4 faces. Yeah, okay, no, I was thinking of something different. Anyway, Earth, Kerros, is the 6-sided, which luckily for us goes... This is Earth. Very coincidental. This representation is a sphere, but if you impose upon your tuning fork and the rest of the spell, you get this, and you will be able to transport to the elemental plane of air or Earth by involving a perfect 6-sided hexahedron in the math of it somehow. Fire is tetrahedron, air is octahedron, water icosahedron, and then ether, the new one I discovered and didn't think about, but is here and technically only came into being once is the second isn't even the second oldest. It's just as old as Kerros herself in this regard, but there's no. It is nothing. So, however we want to think about that fantastically, it will all probably resolve back into the ether somehow. Kerros is in the ether. Sun is in the ether, water is in the ether, fire is in the air is in the ether, the stars are in the ether. I don't think the dark sun's in the ether. The Feywild is also not in the ether. Shadowfell definitely not in the ether. Fire. Okay, I'm not. Okay, I'll do the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's the physical representation of this world, at least in the cosmological sense of it. Now, we could go even farther and take it to the scale of the world, which this world is shaped. It's not even good. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that. Nope. See, this is what I'm having. Nope. This is where my lack of patience gets at me. So, the old wall is the mountain range that surrounds the inner world. That is where, after Goral crouched down to leap, the force of it pushed the world in, pushed the mountains up, and they stayed. When he leapt, it dragged the rest of the world with him, at least as much as he needed to go upward. And then you get the place where all the water, the world pools, and that's the ocean. And from there we get this mountain, this 36 mile high above sea level mountain, that directly above it is the moon. So from here to here, the very center of the mountain range, from one side to the other, the outermost portion or most part of the inner world is 15,000 miles straight across. It's divided up evenly between those sections with the ring continent, which I still haven't really named the ring continent. I don't know what it could be called. Haven't thought about it culturally yet. There's 4 different cultural parts, or well, technically there's 6 different. So we might get to a name. Kerros is the name of the is the word for Earth. In this world, so it may involve that. The center island is called Kerros, the heart of Kerros, the center of Kerros. The center island is 3,000 miles in diameter. From the very center to the outermost portion, is 3,000, and then the ocean ring is also 3,000 from the inner wall to the outermost portion. And then can you guess how long this is? That's right, it's also 3,000. Actually, yeah. It's 3,000, 3,000, 1,500. So we got $3,000. Ocean is 3,000. Mountain is 1,500. And this is the radius, or the total, or this is the radius. And these are the totals. I did like a very quick averaging, because I wanted this world to be big, but fantasy world big, which, in terms of it being fantasy, are big. But in reality, the fantasy that people have of how big things were when the stories were written is a lot smaller than they thought was big. Like the distance of the sun, 93 million miles away. It's a lot farther away than a fantasy amount. Another analogous way people think about this is a long time ago in fantasy is an ancient dragon in Dungeons and Dragons, for example, is 1,000 years old. That's an ancient dragon. And in the scale of culture, that is ancient. That is a long time ago, culturally speaking, to the history of humans and what we do. But in the grand scheme of everything, it's nothing. So one fantasy universe that does take this into account that I appreciate, and there's one thing that I like about it is Malazan Book of the Fallen. Their time scale for ancient is in the hundreds of thousands of years. Uh, Sounds a long time ago to me. So I'm using my sense of a long time ago to give dates, and I'm using my sense of a long distance, but still traversable amount that is somewhat analogous to real life to replicate a real life story to give it that same grounded feeling. So I chose 3,000 because that's kind of the largest distance between the Atlantic Ocean, not the Pacific, the Atlantic, because the Atlantic is the biggest ocean that was crossed in humanity for the longest time. And they didn't know that the Pacific was that big. So I went with the Atlantic because it also is a good boundary between two things that people are actually trying to reach. It seems like it's unreachable, but actually achievable. So the Atlantic is what I went with. I went with kind of the longest gap. I don't know if it really is. I just quickly look these things up and say, okay, sounds plausible. I like that number too. Easy to do things with. So we went with 3,000 for that. And it's about 3,000, there's 3,000 miles in there in the northern United States, or the United States of America, North American continent. And I was like, that's a big country. It's a good long distance to walk through. And so we made that the outer distance of the ring because, making it the size of from Europe to the other end of Asia seemed, I don't even know if that's really analogous, if it's even similar to the United States one. I have no idea. Didn't even want to think about that one because it just seems like two different worlds at that point shoved together in a storytelling way. I don't know why. It's probably because of the cultural differences that I see in my own life about it. I haven't looked that far into it. Every time I hear about the Huns and the Roman Empire together, it's like, why? Why does that jar me? So I'm really not that well versed in those kinds of things. So I went with the United States. I'm American. Sue me. And then for the center island thing, I just kind of did it to reflect the rest of the pattern. And it came out to be pretty nice. It has a lot more surface area exposed. But it is not much bigger than what you'd think. It's a pretty navigable world. At least I would think. The things we got to remember now are what are the purposeful differences that we can apply that could still make things interesting. And to me, that's about the sun and the moon. So because this world is a flat disk with mountains on either side and one in the middle, that is significantly taller. The outside mountains are only 5 miles tall. They're only as big as Everest. We get a permanent shadow here, a permanent shadow here, and all of this is shadowed. So I calculated this shadow and this shadow, and the thing I had to determine was how far this shadow actually went, and I chose the shadow extended to the end of the ocean, where the ring continent and the ocean meet. So 4,500 miles, and that gave me the math I needed for the rest of these. At least There was some, I kept messing some things up, but we're gonna ignore the little things like that, and just if we really need to figure out those things in the future, we've got close enough. We can figure out the exact later. Uh, this shadow, because the sun is where because it's circular and the sun is where it is, it's perfectly half of this mountain, and so we can do a bunch of funky math to figure these things out. So my other sheet of paper, I have those things figured out on. And really, the difficult one that I had to figure out was the overlap. How big truly did the shadow really overlap into the southernmost portion of this world? So, north, south, east, and west, I look at it as north, south, east is on the other side. This is west is on the other side. This is the eastern side. So if we're going to look at it top down, I like north, south, east, west, with the sun shining that way. So you would get the shadow over here, and then you get the shadow on this side. There is a mist wall. That is another important feature of this world. There's a magical mist wall that directly cuts this entire world in half. It's only you can see through it, but it takes like a day or a couple days to actually get through to the expanding universe of it all. The people you see on the other side, you see them in real time. It's all real time movement and whatnot. You can interact. You can visually see and interact that way. You just can't communicate. You'd actually have to go through the wall. Light and all that is very fuzzy on the northern side because it's dim. That's what really causes the distinct features of this world, of the seasons. And there are 6 different areas, and I have those listed in the places. Ah, yes. The different places. So, looking at it from that way, where we have the northernmost, which is winter. It's the coldest place from here. In the inner world, winter is like Antarctica. It's that cold. But it's realistically that cold. It's just like Antarctica. And as soon as you start crossing the mountains, that's when it gets colder than Antarctica. That's where it gets to the fantasy versions of cold in the area of winter. Because as soon as you cross that side, you are in the Fey realm of the Winter Court. So we will start there. This is the hibernal area of this world. It's actually pretty thin. I haven't done the major calculations yet of exactly these distances. Yeah, I don't even confidently know how to spell it yet. So this is the autumnal part of the continent, of the world. And this is the serotinal. These are the climates. Climate regions of this world. After the serotinal, you got the prevernal. Vernal, which I'm probably going to have to change pre-vernal to something else, and then estival. So these are the different climates of this world, and this is the southernmost. This is the northernmost. I stole these names directly from the. It was referenced as the ecological calendar. Our calendars are based on the time of year, so it's calendars involved with the labeling of the seasons. In this world, climate doesn't change in that regard. Seasons don't change because the sun never moves. The tilting position of this world doesn't move at all, so it all remains around the same unless magically or the world manifests differently in some way in reality. So I took that and just mapped it to the locations, and I went with this version because it gave me more categorizational options. I like categories. I like to be able to put things in categories. I like to be able to find relevant things together with those categories. Things can have multiple categories, so tags to go with it, and this just adds more tags that I can put on. And also, these things would have distinctive parts to them. If you get to the middle of the vernal part of any part in this world, and it's going to be different than the dead of heat summer desert. That is the southernmost portion of the Estival area. So I think over time, most people of this world would make these classification differences. So I'm going to make them. And it's really helped me start making different things because most different categories can be lumped into these distinctions because it really helps locate where they are, and the location of where something is really has a lot to do with a lot of what it is. It'll help with naming conventions. It'll help with a lot of crap. So these are also the. I also gave them a lower form reference. In English, or in, well, I guess you could say it in other languages too. I only speak English, so there are words people use based on class, or at least that's how they originally made the distinction of. A lot of French words are used for different. A lot of French food and terms are used for the same things of Germanic ones, but because of the different class use and class of people that interacted here, a higher class person would use the French form of the words to mean something else, and then reference the other forms for a lower form or derogatory or however you want to make it a class difference in that regard. So I kept that because I feel like people would still do that anyway because people, fantasy world, act the same as people in the real world. Except they get away with a lot more. So that's what we're doing here with the naming of this. The shadow area in the high Estival, which is kind of why I started making this part of this thing here. That is 698.72 miles long. 98.72. That's how much a shadow those mountains would cast on the 3,000 miles between that and the ocean. So, not much. It's quite a bit. It's 600 some miles. That's like almost 2 time zones, depending on where you're at over here. Uh, so 2 days of driving. It's a long time. Would be perfectly good distance in a fantasy world of not driving to take a week to cross this, or 2 weeks to get across this just permanently dark and hot, really hot part of the world. But it's only hot when the sun's awake. When the sun goes out, it gets really cold. So, extreme place right here. And then you got 3,000 miles to from there to the ocean. I'm not sure where or how big these bands actually are, these climate bands. Yet. I don't think I'm going to figure those out on stream because I tend to whiff-waff back and forth until I finally go with something. Yeah, I'm not going to do that here. I'll do it later. So, the shadow of the center place, of the center one, will definitely cover all of the serotinal portions of where it is covered, and some of the autumnal. So we got an idea there of how wide these things actually are. I'm probably going to go something even so it can be mathematically figured out, blah, blah, blah. Don't know yet. So, I don't know if there's any other physical representation that needs to be kept in mind. The stars are in the area above the sphere of the inner world, which is the ether. It's anything above this, so... No. Do I already have it on this one? Nope, I don't. Stars are there. They all move around constantly. You can like look up and see them moving. It's not like real life where they slowly move. The sun, it stays put. It goes out at night. That's what causes nighttime. Because it never moves, we get the climates. We get all the climates here. You get the shadow of the moon, of this, the shadow area of both of these. Why this is the shadow fell. We have the measurements of the real world in relation. There are floating islands that float through around here. Those are the dead bodies of a few gods that have fallen from a war in the past, but they move, so they gotta be matched they gotta be figured out. I have to figure out some other way to map them and represent them in my world. So we'll figure that out. This is the cosmological things. These are the definitive ones. These won't change. I don't think about the other outer planes that D&D prescribes in their 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide. The divinity of the alignment table is pointless to me. I don't care about it at all. Somebody wants to use it to do whatever, sure, but it has no real basis in this fantasy setting, other than there is law, there is chaos, there is good, there is evil, and they do have rigid ideas about those in here, but it doesn't really it doesn't have anything to do with it cosmologically. Spiritually, it's not the same. Spirits work differently in this world. Personality is different because of that. The zombies are different because of it. So that's a different topic, and that's why it's not really needed for visually seeing this world. I tend to think about it in this form from the side because I don't really need to view it up and down, straight up and down all the time. But when I want to get to like the climate ideas, that's when I start thinking about it more like along these lines. Ooh, goodness. Oh, here's the abyss. That was created in that was a created thing. So it's again not the same as the other planes. It's a prison in this case. Yeah, I think that's it. I kind of liked this setup of me looking at it this way and drawing. I don't know about keeping this up per se. This thing up. I don't know about that yet. I'll have to figure out another way to keep pulling information up. Anyway, but yeah, this is how to visually see what I'm talking about in this world. We will use it often. Zoom out some. There we go. This is gonna get crazy big. I can already see it. I can't wait. I love making stupid things. Oh yeah. Perfect. It's already getting dumb. Okay. Now that I've done that, let's... There. The sun is over here. And it's perfectly in line with the moon. Like, it's straight ahead. Just because it was it was easy to figure out math like that. I'm sure I might be able to change that in the future, so I can adjust the math to where it is in a different position. But that will change the shadow of the inner world. It'll change that shadow. It'll change the shadow. So I gotta have to refigure those things out, which isn't a problem. It's just something to do in the future. I'm not going to do that now. And then really the sun's children, the stars. Right up there. there in the ether. In a physical sense, the inner world is the ring world, the ocean, and the middle continent with the dead bodies things, and then you have the climate map of it. Yeah, I think that's it. So we'll end that here for this one. Yeah.